I'm Dennis Anderson along with Julie Zenner. Here's what's coming up on Almanac North.
The synthetic drug problem may be down in Duluth, but police now say more young people are using the dangerous narcotic heroin. Duluth Police Chief is here with us tonight.
Who has the power to recommend preservation of historic buildings and landmarks? That debate will soon be before the Duluth City Council.
And we'll have the latest business update and a story that was making news 25 years ago.
You've come to the right place. Almanac North is next. Hello and welcome to Almanac North. Thanks for watching. This week's program was recorded on Wednesday afternoon. And welcome back to Julie Zenner after a couple of weeks off.
Yeah, it was nice to have some time off. Did a little traveling, but good to be back.
Good to have you back. All right, let's get started tonight, Julie.
All right. Thank you, Denny, and welcome everyone. For the past several years, Duluth police have been cracking down on people who have been abusing prescription drugs like OxyContin. But as the supply of opiate-based prescription drugs began to dry up, some abusers began switching to a very dangerous alternative, heroin. Duluth Police Chief Gordon Ramsay joins us to talk about this latest drug problem and other issues. And thanks for being here, Chief.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
Heroin, it seems like one of those hardcore drugs from the 70s. Is it making a comeback nationally, or is this just something that's particular to Duluth right now?
Well, this is not just a Duluth problem. It's all corners of the country are having the same issues with the increase in use of heroin, primarily because of prescription drug abuse, opiate-based prescription drug abuse.
Some people have been asking, Chief, if it's once we've got rid of the synthetic drug problem, are these now the people who are using heroin? But it goes far beyond that.
Correct. Yeah, many of the synthetic users were addicts and they'd get anything they could get their hands on, they would use. So there might be a small connection, but not much.
So is there a pipeline then that comes up from the Twin Cities and from Chicago?
Well, the type of heroin we're seeing here is a brown heroin that is made in Mexico, and it comes up via Chicago.
Who's using it? Is it just the hardcore drug users? Is it adults? Is it reaching down into the schools? Where are you seeing the use?
Well, with the prescription opiate drugs, it's 18 to 25 is the primary users. A couple years ago we've had some large busts of the prescription drug rings, and anytime we have those busts, we see an increase in the use of heroin, primarily because the users can't get their hands on the prescriptions.
And what makes it so dangerous for the community?
Well, one of the big things with heroin is the type of heroin that comes in. You never know the consistency, what percentage is actual heroin. Some of it's 50, some of it's 60. It can be as high as 90% pure heroin. When they're used to 60% potency, all of a sudden they get 90%. That's when we see the overdoses.
So if a prescription is not made specifically for a person who is abusing the drugs, how are they getting their hands on prescription drugs?
Well, prescription opiate pills are selling to anywhere from $80 to $120. Oftentimes they're from...
For one pill?
For one pill. They're from family members' cabinets. They're from friends' cabinets where they'll sneak them away. We had a case not too long ago where a grandfather who had been sick with cancer had amassed a massive amount of prescription opiates, and the grandson got his hands on those and was selling them.
So what have you and the other members of the police department really been doing to crack down on both the prescription drug abuse and the heroin use that you're seeing?
Well, first of all, it's prevention. We want to prevent anybody from using it. So we're trying to make the public more aware of the issues that we have in Duluth, and that a lot of it is starting with younger, 18 to 25-year-olds, but also it impacts everybody. There is no socioeconomic border it does not cross. It can happen to the young, the old, and oftentimes someone will go in for pains, and they'll be, pain or surgery, and they'll be prescribed a prescription opiate, and they're hooked.
I'm sure it's not unusual. People go into their medicine cabinet and they find, oh my word, I still have a prescription left over from 3 years ago. So we should get rid of those who are not taking.
Correct. We have a box at the Public Safety Building up by Chris Jensen where people can come and drop them off. It's a lock box. What goes in there doesn't come out. There's no access.
Yeah.
It doesn't go into the environment, and it's kept out of the hands of anybody who shouldn't have.
That's better than throwing them down the toilet too.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Are you seeing a lot of related crime associated with the drug problems?
Well, our property crime in Duluth is driven really by the drug problems that we have. So the users that are looking for their next high are looking for property also that they can sell, fence somehow, and get some more money. So there's no doubt that we see a major connection between our property crime and drug addiction.
By property crime, like home burglaries, things of this
Burglaries, car prowls, garage burglaries, those kind of things.
nature? Do you?
And Chief, we do have a graphic up on the screen right now. Kind of explain what people are seeing a little bit.
This shows the increase in the police department seizures and purchases of heroin, purchases as part of an investigation over the last few years. And you can see a large increase in the amount of seizures and purchases.
And it looks like that third quarter of 2013 particularly has a real high spike. Now, I know you said it doesn't necessarily connect with the synthetics, but that was about the time that the last place on earth in town was closed down. So could there be some correlation with
Like
that?
I said, a very small one, but for the most part, they're different users. Yeah.
Let's move into that topic a little bit too, because that was a long time kind of thorn in your side with the last place on earth downtown. Since it's been closed, are you seeing a dramatically different downtown?
I think so. Not only are you seeing it, but we're feeling it as well. It just, the whole feel of downtown has changed. You know, there was hundreds of addicts that would be down there every day, and oftentimes they would loiter and hang around, panhandle, create disturbances. We knew that as soon as our police officers left that block, if they were not in that block, within 5-10 minutes we'd get called back.
I know in the past couple of years, probably since about 2010, when St. Louis County was on the list of this being the second highest alcohol-related traffic accidents, you've stepped up your enforcement against drunk driving.
Correct, yes. You know, if we looked at our fatalities, traffic-related fatalities over the last few years, and with the exception of this year and last year, previous years we had a number of particularly young adult males, college age, that were killed in vehicular accidents as a result of drinking and driving. These are preventable accidents. We want to make sure people are aware of the dangers of drinking and driving, and we're out there enforcing the law.
Chief, can you walk us through a scenario? What happens if somebody is pulled over and indeed they flunk the breathalyzer test? What happens?
Well, if there's probable cause to take them into custody, we bring them to either the police station or the jail, where more testing is done to determine, they're put through an intoxilizer, and then ultimately they're charged with DWI.
Yeah.
Court process, you're talking a DWI court process, the costs and fines, insurance costs, it's about $8,000 to $10,000 now.
We've all seen these billboards in town that say
Right.
if you're arrested for drunk driving, you've just blown 10 grand.
Yes.
That's a lot of money.
That is a lot of money. Yeah.
And is that a deterrent? Are you seeing that the fact that you are stepping up the enforcement is actually keeping people from getting behind the wheel when they're drunk?
Well, our numbers the last few years of DWI arrests have gone down. And as I work and travel around the streets at night, bar closing time, I will see more cabs at the bars than I've ever seen.
Oh, really?
I see college-age kids waiting for the cabs. Years past, that wasn't the case.
Are college-age drinkers smarter than maybe older people who are still getting behind the wheel, or are older people not getting behind the wheel after drinking?
Well, I think it's all ages.
Is it?
I don't think it's just one age category. I think a lot of people too often don't realize that they've consumed too much, and they put themselves and other people in a bad position.
And in this day and age, too much isn't very much booze, is it?
0.08.
That's it?
Yeah.
Chief, another topic that's been in the news lately has been you wanting to bring back the horse patrols, which were pretty popular down in the Canal Park area. What's the status of that right now?
Well, I'm excited about the prospect. When we look at the perception of safety downtown, after dark, it's like 20% of the people feel safe downtown after dark. That's way out of whack. During the day, it's a little higher, but we need to change that perception. And one of the ways we're going to do it is by having more cops on foot and bringing back the mounted patrol. When you talk to someone that's seen Mounted Patrol, they will remember where and when they saw them. And it makes an impact. And that's the memory we want people to have downtown.
We all remember, who are a little older, the old beat system where officers would walk the streets. Are you having more officers walk the streets now during daylight hours even downtown?
Yes, we've been trying to get cops out of the cars for as long as we can.
Yeah.
A lot of it is, we are call driven too often. And Duluth's geography makes it a little more difficult. But we have more footbeats now than we've had in many, many, many years.
Yeah, and I imagine they would stop in, see the merchants, talk with them, and the merchants must like that too.
They do, yeah. Not only the merchants, but the employees, the area employees, and the people that live in those areas.
Yeah.
Is there a high cost associated with bringing back the mounted patrols?
You know what, we have received a phenomenal response from the community, and the donations really have covered our initial costs. We've also applied for some grants that will have a huge impact. The cost will be minimal to the department.
Yeah.
Speaking of donations, the Duluth Police Foundation is starting to raise money. What do you see the value in that being?
Well, obviously there's no secret. I mean, government doesn't have the money it used to. We have to be more innovative at how we fund our projects and how we get money to do the things we need to do, whether it be with policing or neighborhood watches or citizens patrols. This foundation will help fund some of those programs, our Police Explorers with youth programs. So no doubt that the foundation will help us fund programs that will benefit the community from a safety perspective.
Are there any other parts of town, Chief, where you'd like to see a mini police station put?
We're covered pretty good right now. We've got from Fond du Lac to Lakeside up to the mall. We've got stations now, so I think we're
You're
set.
okay in that department?
Yes, yeah, 8 of them throughout the city.
8 of them?
Yes.
All right. Well, Chief, thank you for coming in so much and visiting with us. We appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to sit down.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks.
Now, let's dig into our news file archive for a look at what was making news 25 years ago this week.
Some governors and U.S. congressmen say National Guard training exercises in Central America are more political than parochial. They claim the presence of U.S. troops in countries like Honduras have either directly or indirectly aided Contra rebels who are trying to overthrow Nicaragua's communist government. Rudy Perpich is one of those governors. He's gone to federal court to challenge a law that keeps him from keeping the Minnesota Guard at home. Today, he won a big round in that fight. The Eighth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled that the federal law in this case is unconstitutional. To use the National Guard, the federal government must have the consent of the governor, unless Congress declares a national emergency. The court pointed out that National Guard troops who fought in Grenada and bombed Libya were technically on training status, just like troops in Central America. And while the court did concede a lot has changed since the Constitution was drafted in 1787, it concluded the world has not changed so dramatically that we can no longer abide by the provisions of our Constitution. John Schottel, KDLH News.
The city of Duluth adopted sweeping code reform when it okayed the Uniform Development Chapter back in 2010. Now, at that time, little was made of a change that took important power away from the city's Heritage Preservation Commission. The new code says that any nomination for historic landmark status must come from the property's owner. Next week, the issue is before the City Council when an ordinance will be considered that could restore the authority to the commission. And joining us now to talk about all of this is David Woodward. He is chair of the Heritage Commission, and he's a history professor at UMD. And Tony Dierckins is publisher of the local history site Zenith City Online and co-author of the book Lost Duluth. Dave, why is it important for the commission to have the power to recommend landmark status?
Well, it's a tool that the city can use and the commission to preserve the the historic nature of a community. And it is set up with the National Historic Preservation Act, which is a national act which sets up these local commissions. And that gives an advisory role to citizens and professionals, which some of us are professionals on the commission, to advise the planning department and the city itself in trying to protect some of this heritage. And we think of ourselves as a heritage preservation commission that goes beyond just the history.
So the city council took away some of what you had been doing previously?
Yeah, it was set up in 1989, and originally, well, our main goal as a commission is to nominate historic properties to historic landmark. Now, with the revision in the UDC, what it did was it created a situation where only the land owner or representative of could nominate those. So it really took away our main mission, which was we're the body that nominates properties. Property owners can come to us and recommend that their own property gets nominated, but it's really the body, the commission, that nominates them. With this UDC and the way that that was written, that was stripped from us, which then puts us in a lot of jeopardy, because then we could lose our status as a certified local
and
community.
Funding?
And potential for funding. And we're really under the umbrella of the State Historic Preservation Office, who then governs us as a UDC, and it's all part of that whole system.
Tony, you've been pretty outspoken with concern about this change. Why isn't it all right to put that nominating authority back into the hands of the property owners? Doesn't it? It seems like that's where maybe it should be.
Maybe it should be, maybe it shouldn't. The landmark status protects the building through its next sale as well for the next person. Let's take example, Old City Hall. It was a landmark protected building, and it was purchased by new owners who wanted to make some alterations to it that weren't congruent with its architecture, and they didn't want to do that. And we went through a process with them and finally got them on board. They got federal government, they got a 20% tax credit, and now we've got our beautiful 1889 City Hall restored, and Dierckins is a thriving restaurant there, and there's some other businesses in there, and we've retained a part of history and a part of our character as a community. I mean, let's think about it. When you go over Skyline Parkway, you could be in any town USA. It's our downtown, it's our historic building stock, that one of the things that makes us unique. It's not our proximity to the lake.
Part of Duluth's history is the wonderful historic homes that we have in this community, a lot of mansions. How would private homes be affected? Or how are they affected now?
Well, private homes could be affected in that if the city commission would like to nominate a property as a local landmark status, then it would go through the city council before anything like that could happen. And we would work with the owner of that property to develop a preservation plan that is specific to that property. And there's a lot of give and take between the owner and the commission on how that would then be put into place. One of the things, going back to your earlier question, one of the things that Duluth is unique in is its historic character. And with the way that the economy is going and economic development here in the downtown area especially, we see historic preservation and heritage preservation as an economic development tool, not something, as some people have worried, that historic preservation could be an impediment to economic development. Well, actually quite the opposite. And we see with Dierckins, as part of their business plan, was to keep that historic character. And it really is why we're a destination for people from the Twin Cities or Chicago, is because of that.
Tony, you're well aware of the historic nature of a lot of buildings in this town. You've written a book on it.
Kind of my job.
Yeah. What's the status now? Is all of this going to be put into jeopardy if the council does not take some action again, if this is not overturned, what they had taken away?
I think the biggest fear is, like David said, is losing our status as a certified local government, which would allow us funding. And for instance, City Hall, current City Hall, Lakewood Pump House, these are landmark buildings. We could be getting government funds, 20% state tax credits, 20% government tax credits to maintain and keep those vital buildings part of our community, the building stock that the city owns. So it is another thing. It's another economic hit on it. So there's these buildings that we have in the cities. this arose over, I think, with the St. Peter's Catholic
Yeah.
Church. The city tried to nominate it as a landmark building, or the Heritage Preservation Commission tried to nominate it, and the diocese threatened to sue not only the city and the HPC, but David and other individuals on the council. And then that UDC code change came about. So they don't understand that the HPC Commission and nominating a landmark building isn't trying to get in the way of development or this, cities are living, breathing things, and they have to, we can't keep everything forever. But it does give us an opportunity to examine if these buildings can be adapted for reuse, become vital parts of the community again. It slows the process from making it a knee-jerk reaction. We want a new building, we're taking it down. And it doesn't really prevent the building owner from doing anything. As David said before, it can nominate, and even once a building has landmark status, the owners can bring their case to is it the city council or the planning commission? I'm not sure which one, and have those some of those restrictions, if you will, or guidelines, better said, overruled or bypassed for their particular in a particular case. One of the biggest things, and of course, is renovation, and it has to be appropriate. Well, probably the most inappropriate renovation move is knocking the entire building down. So this is all part of not every building must be saved, but whoa, stop, let's take a look at this before we knock it down, before we compromise its history. What else are we losing here? The craftsmanship, the materials.
And one thing that's really important to realize also is that historic resources are non-renewable resources. So we cannot go back and recreate historic preservation or historic structures. So once they are taken down, they're lost forever. And that's something that we really have to think when we're planning for the city, and we're just an advisory commission for the city, but when we're planning, we want to develop smart planning. And part of that smart planning is take into account all the resources that can be affected from any specific action of the city, and one of those is historic or heritage preservation concerns. So that's really what we are doing. And really, the commission doesn't have the power to put properties on the landmark status. Only the city council does. And through this process of nominating, that's all we can do is nominate and recommend. There's a lot of room for public opinion, including landowners, to come in. And the City Planning Commission already can change zoning laws without, or zoning of properties without landowner consent. They have that right to do that. And this would be similar in that sense, but there's a lot of room for public comment and that kind of thing.
Do you get the sense that the city council is open to putting that responsibility back with the commission?
Yes, I do. I don't know about every member, but the change that is before the or the commission right now, that would be the council, was proposed by 2 commissioner or council members. So they're the ones that are spearheading it, and we're on board with that, of course.
Was the change when they were putting the Uniform Development Code together, was that change intentional, or was it an oversight? You had mentioned that it might have been in response to being threatened by a lawsuit.
It could have been, we don't know. We don't know for sure. It was certainly a lack of understanding of the HPC and its bylaws that would make anyone think it was necessary. It's like they didn't really understand how the HPC and the landmark status worked, and so it might have been made of a knee-jerk reaction to avoid lawsuits or something like that. But it's kind of cutting off your nose to spite your face. You're trying to save this one thing, but you're stopping what could be generous state and federal funding and tax breaks and other things that could help.
What happens if the city council doesn't change?
Well, then what I would say would happen is it would be with SHPO then could repeal our status as a certified local community, CLG, or government. And the next step of that would be then, since that is our main goal of the Heritage Preservation Commission, it could take the commission out of it could
Out of business.
Out of business,
Yeah,
really.
it's-
You'd
Strip
say
us
goodbye
of-
to funding?
Strip us of our certified local government status, certified or standing, basically make our, the bylaw,
The commission
the
non-functional.
commission non-functional.
Okay.
And so, it's already kind of the redheaded stepchild of Duluth city government. I mean, it's the only HBC in the nation without its own budget.
On
and
that, we
funding.
have to quit. Thank you
Yeah.
very much, David.
Okay.
Tony, thank you
And
for
thank
being
you so
here.
much.
You bet.
Well, let's look now at the region's economic news from our friends at Business North. Essentia Health has voluntarily withdrawn a rezoning request for a clinic expansion in Grand Rapids. Already approved by the city's planning commission, the proposal would have affected some residential property. The withdrawal came after a number of residents voiced concerns at a city council public hearing. Essentia's Michael Metcalf said the decision was made because Essentia wants to be a good, respected community partner. The regional healthcare giant said plans to expand in the Grand Rapids market remain alive, and another site will be sought.
HealthShare will not be able to provide health coverage beyond December 31st, despite the president's offer to extend the deadline for providers that don't comply with Obamacare. The nonprofit, which offers coverage to more than 800 people employed by Duluth area companies, can't continue because its product isn't structured as health insurance. Since all Americans must be enrolled in an insurance plan on January 1st, those using non-insurance products would be required to pay a penalty. HealthShare officials believe most current members should be able to find affordable options through MinSure, the state's new insurance exchange.
Lake Connections, Lake County's publicly owned broadband network, has filed a complaint with the Federal Communications Commission objecting to an ultimatum by Frontier Communications. Frontier has demanded its cables occupy the bottom position on all utility poles. The cost to move Frontier's existing cables down on all utility poles and place Lake Connections fiber optic cable higher would result in delays and increased costs, the group argues. County Administrator Matthew Huddleston said Frontier has been unwilling to help find a mutually agreeable solution. For more on these and other stories, visit businessnorth.com.
Now, if you have a comment about the program, give us a call. Dial 218-788-2849 to leave a message or send an email to almanacnorth@wdsc.org. And remember to check out the WDSC website for the latest program information and to watch clips and archived episodes of your favorite public television programming. Well, Julie, Wisconsin's firearms deer season begins this weekend. Good luck to the hunters and or to the deer, depending on your perspective.
I'm rooting for both.
Are you? All right. For Julie and the crew at Almanac North, I'm Dennis Anderson. Have a great weekend, everybody, and be kind.